boys, how are you all? I hope everyone who is watching this video is doing absolutely great. And today we are gonna solve the 10th question paper, my dear children. Now this is not actually a sample paper, this is a previous year question paper where I'll be focusing on questions from biology, Ashura ma'am will be focusing on chemistry, and Samik sir will be focusing on physics. That's how we are gonna complete one whole question paper. Now, ma'am, what's the use of solving 10 sample papers or basically 10 question papers? First thing, it would help you understand the pattern of questions that are going to come on the day of your exam. The thing is, we always go through the concept and everything, but we never put those concepts into practice by solving questions. So we never know what type of questions come and how to frame the answers for it. Now when you have practiced enough, you know how to frame your answers in a better way and what type of questions usually come around. Now second thing, you can find, is there any repetition in the questions? Are certain topics of very much importance? Do they always give you questions? You will understand that. You might have seen I've solved so many questions from genetics. So every year you get at least one question, one big question, either a 5 mark or a 4 mark from genetics. So you know it carries that much weightage, so probably I have to anyway study it. I cannot miss it. Now from our environment there will be ozone and things like that which is usually asked. So you know that is important. I have to study that also. So you know the weightage of certain topics by itself when you practice question papers, my dear children, and that matters a lot. So here the whole purpose of launching the sample paper solution and thing was to make your preparation game really strong. Now apart from this, okay, after we have solved this, we are thinking of bringing up something new which would help you up. We know it's just 2 days left for your exams to get started, and then you would be having science paper on Feb 20th. We will figure out something and we will give whatever is needed. But if you have your own opinions on it, what you want, you can put it down in the comment section below. We will consider that and we will also plan accordingly. Works? Chalo, let's get into the sample paper. So this sample paper contains 8 1-marker question, it contains wait, Amma, why is it not coming? Come, yeah. It contains 2 2-marker question, 2 3-marker question, 1 5-marker and 1 4-marker question. So in total, how much do you get? 12 plus 6, 18, 18 plus 5, 23, 23 plus 4, 27 this time. Okay, 27 marks you are getting from biology, my dear children. This is according to the previous year question paper. So your whole science paper is 80. Out of that, 27 marks you will be getting from biology according to this paper. The other papers that we saw had 30 marks from biology and things like that. So there is quite a bit change over here. But anyways, it's not a very big change, just a small change. 3 marks are gone. So that's all. So we have to practice biology accordingly, my dear children, with starting with section A, which contains all 1-marker question. It contains both MCQs as well as assertion and reason. So we'll start with the MCQ question. Okay, the process in which transport of soluble products of photosynthesis takes place in plant is known as. So in photosynthesis, what is happening? The food is being prepared. What is the food, my dear children? Food is basically none other than carbohydrate. It is the carbohydrate. Now the soluble form of this carbohydrate has to be moved down to different parts of the plant. Now plants, each part also requires this food, right? They also have to prepare their energy, they also have to sustain, right? So obviously you have to transport it. What do you call this process as? When you are transporting the soluble product of photosynthesis, what do you call this? Do you call it transpiration? No. Transpiration is what? Loss of water in the form of water vapor. Evaporation, same thing. Conduction, again, no. Translocation is something that comes under this. So translocation is basically transport of food or basically the soluble product of photosynthesis. Now usually the food is being transported in the form of sucrose. Now you might think that in the process of photosynthesis you make glucose, and how do you get sucrose? Well, if you try to transport glucose, my dear children, glucose is a highly reactive sugar. It goes and say it's a reducing sugar. Okay, it will go and react with a lot of things and it will form something else. So rather than that, this particular glucose is converted to a non-reducing form of sugar, which is sucrose. That is how it is transported. Then later, when sucrose is reached to the place where it has to, it will convert back into glucose, and basically all this thing will be happening. Okay, so your answer is translocation. Okay, now going ahead to the next question. The correct sequence of events when someone's hands touches a hot object unconsciously. For example, I have a hot pan, I touch it. So when I touch it, it has to understand, my body has to understand that there is something hot. Who is the one that senses it? It is the receptors which are present. Okay, there are sensory receptors which are present on our skin. It will sense it, and now it will send a signal to the sensory neuron. Okay, sensory neuron is the one that will take the signal that something has happened. Jasmine, touch a hot thing. Okay, so basically the sensory neuron will take this information to where, my dear children? Will it take it directly to the brain? No. If you take it to the brain, brain will think and then will do an action. I don't want the brain to think. I don't have that much time. So basically the sensory neuron will take the information to the spinal cord. And in the spinal cord, I have one neuron which is known as relay neuron or interneuron. Okay, what do I call it? Relay neuron or interneuron. Okay, now from the spinal cord, the signal is sent to an effector organ. For example, my muscle cell, that you have to fold, or basically you have to contract, or whatever, relax, or whatever is needed. So at this point of time, who is the one that takes the signal to my muscle cell? It will be another neuron which is known as motor neuron, which is responsible for, say, movement or things like that. So motor neuron will be sending the signal to the effector organ, or basically the muscle or whatever is there. As of now, when I want to touch, once I say move my hand away from a hot object, I obviously have to contract my muscles over here. So for that, I have to send the signal to the effector muscle. Okay, so what do I have? I have the receptors, and then I have the sensory neuron. After sensory neuron, I have the relay neuron, which is there in the CNS, or basically what do you call spinal cord. Now, do you think that information is not sent to the brain at all? No. Information is definitely sent to the brain. That is why we remember something like this have happened in our life. But it is the spinal cord which takes the quick action. Okay, so relay neuron and then the motor neuron, effector muscle in the arm. This is the flow. Cool? Works? Chalo. Next. The sense organ in which olfactory receptors are present. What do you mean by olfactory receptors? All, I always remember, think with oil. You know, there is a smell in oil. The oil smells a little different. So, we are able to smell it. So, oil is there in our, then the nose is having the olfactory receptors. That is why we are able to smell it. Always remember, olfactory receptors are present in our nose. What about our tongue? In our tongue, what is present? Gustatory receptors. Always remember. Gustatory receptors. How do I remember it? Gustatory. I remember it like that. It is there for taste. Okay. And tongue is there for taste. So I remember it as like that. I remember it like that. Gustatory. Actually it is tatory, but I say tastatory. Just for me to remember things better. So you can also try it out. Okay, chalo. Now, the incorrect statement about placenta is, no, you know, placenta is something that is formed for nourishment of the baby or the fetus which is there. Now, placenta is actually disc-shaped structure, my dear children, which is present between the mother's uterine wall and the baby, or basically the fetus. Now, placenta has, villi on it. Okay, placenta is basically a combination of villi and the blood spaces from the mother's end. So this villi is there for increasing the surface area for exchange of gases. So the placenta has something that is known as chorionic villi, my dear children. And this is there for increasing the surface area for exchange of gases. Like CO2, oxygen or things like that. The baby will be needing oxygen and the baby needs to give what? Carbon dioxide, that has to be removed. So this exchange has to happen. So to increase the surface area, what does it have? It has villi as well. Now apart from exchange of gases, what does this placenta do? Placenta also helps in removal of unwanted stuff from the baby's body. The waste materials from the baby's body. Cool. Now we have to find the incorrect statement. It is a disc embedded in the uterine wall. This is correct. It contains villi on the embryo side of the tissue. That is also correct. It has a very small surface area for glucose and oxygen to pass from mother to the embryo. Do you think it has a very small surface area? No, my dear children. It has a larger surface area for exchange of gases. Now the embryo gets nutrition from the mother's blood through it. Do you think the embryo which is there, it gets the nutrition from the mother's blood through it? Yes. I told you, for exchange of everything, whether it be nutrients or gases or everything, it is done by this. So there's only one incorrect statement, and that is C. Cool? Okay. Now, select from the following conditions. The conditions responsible for rapid spread of bread mold on a slice of bread. My dear children, what do you mean by bread mold? Bread mold is a fungus, that is Rhizopus. Okay, now rhizopus says that I will be only spreading, I would be only able to make a new bread mold when my spores are going to land on an area which has high moisture and things like that. So first thing, how do they reproduce? They reproduce with the help of spores. So a whole structure of this thing has sporangium and things like that, and hyphae and whatnot. So what happens is that once a bread mold is formed, okay, this is a sporangia, okay, or sporangium, and sporangium has lots of spores. Once they will be breaking open, releasing all the spores down, and now these spores, suppose it is landing on an area where there is high moisture and everything, what happens? These spores will again form something like this, and again the same cycle repeats again and again. So select from the following the conditions responsible for rapid spread of bread mold on a slice of bread. So what are the things that are needed? Formation of large number of spores, yes, obviously you need them, otherwise who will go and land on the moisture rich area, right? Now presence of moisture and nutrients in the blood, obviously, otherwise the spores would not be able to germinate. You call them germination of the spores, okay? Now low temperature, presence of hyphae, no my dear children. The spore will later, when they have moisture, they will by itself form the hyphae, they form the mycelium, they form the sporangium, all the structures of a fungus which is needed. So I will say what all are correct, 1 and 2 is correct. 1 and 2 is totally correct, okay? Fine. Now, which one of the following is not a natural ecosystem? What do you mean by natural ecosystem? Where there is no human interference. Okay, for example, an ecosystem which is there, where abiotic and biotic, living and non-living factors are there, they are just surviving on themselves. We are not doing anything. For example, you do not go and check out see what is happening in there, do you? No, right? It is just naturally self-sustaining. You are not doing it. You are not putting fishes in there and doing things like that. Okay, you might kill those fishes and things. That is something different. But basically, you are not needed there for its existence to happen. Okay, indirectly, directly, I am not talking about that. But basically, you are not needed there. But when I talk about an artificial ecosystem, my dear children, artificial ecosystem is something that I make. I can choose the abiotic factors, I choose the biotic factors, everything. For example, I have an aquarium. In that, I put the fishes I want, I put the plants that I want, I put the water, I clean the water, I do everything. So it is totally dependent on me also. So this is artificial ecosystem. And the one where there is no dependence on me directly, I'll call this as what? Natural ecosystem. So you are asked which one of them is not a natural ecosystem. So that means you have to spot what? An artificial ecosystem over here. So pond ecosystem, it is natural ecosystem. Grassland ecosystem, it is also natural ecosystem. Forest ecosystem, that is also natural. Cropland ecosystem, I am planting the crops that I am needing, my dear children. I am giving the nutrients, I am tilling the soil, I am doing everything. So this is what? An artificial ecosystem. Okay, and this is not a natural ecosystem as said. Cool? Yes. Now next thing, assertion and reason question. Sex of the children, or basically the child, will be determined by what they inherit from their mother. Do you think sex of a child is being determined by what they inherit from the mother? Reason says women have XX sex chromosome. So yes, that is correct. The statement is correct. I am not saying the reason is explaining the assertion and things like that. Okay, so female have XX chromosome, male have XY chromosome, my dear children. So I am putting in one gamete 1X, another gamete will also be again X only. Here also there will be X and here there will be Y. Either way you get X, or here you get X and Y. Now suppose this and this came together, you get XX, that will be a girl. This and this came together, you get XY. Now this is what? A boy, my dear children. XX again, a girl, and XY, a boy. So over here, what determines the sex of the child? Mother anyway is going to contribute X only. The father has a right to give X or Y. Well, this is not like he is knowingly determining the sex. It is unknowingly happening. So you should not be blaming your father or mother for the sex of the child. First of all, whatever it be, there should not be any problem, right? So yes, the sex of the child will be determined by what they inherit from the mother is a wrong statement because it depends on what they inherit from the father. So assertion is false, but the reason that they are saying women have XX chromosome, that is correct. So I'll say statement 1 is false, statement R is correct. Statement A is false, statement R is true. D is the correct answer for this. Cool? Chalo. Next. Assertion. Ozone layer protects the surface of Earth from harmful UV radiation. Does it? Does it? So, ozone layer is present in our stratosphere, my dear children, and it basically forms a layer like this, and ozone is basically O3 molecule, right? So, O3 molecules basically they come together to form a layer such that it could protect us from these harmful radiations, UV radiations of the sun. That is the use of it. It absorbs it. Does not allow the UV radiations to reach us. Because if it reaches, we can get cancer and stuff like that. So, the assertion statement is true. What about the reason? Chlorofluorocarbons are responsible for depletion of ozone layer. Do you think there is something responsible for depletion of ozone layer? Yes. There is a chemical that is known as chlorofluorocarbons. So, what do they do is that this chlorine goes and attacks, this chlorine which is there, it goes and attacks the ozone molecule and breaking them down into into what? O plus O2. This Cl will combine with O and give you ClO, and then this oxygen is left behind. Later this can get broken down or anything can happen to that as well. You get it? So, anyway the ozone molecule is broken down. O3 was there, now you are breaking it down to O and O2. So, that is a problem, right? So, chlorofluorocarbons are responsible for depletion of ozone layer, that is also correct. But do you think this reason which is there, it is explaining the assertion by any chance? Ozone layer protects the surface of the earth from harmful UV radiation, and this are two separate statements. They are both correct, but it is not the correct explanation. So, what can I say? I can say both A and B are true, but R is not the correct explanation of A. Cool? Chalo. And with this, we have completed the 1 marker questions, and now we are going ahead with the 2 marker questions. Okay, so this is our question. Sometimes while running, athletes suffer from muscle cramps. Why? How is respiration in this case different from aerobic respiration? So while we are running a lot, what happens is that we are making our body devoid of oxygen. Okay, our body cell says that we want oxygen. Why do we need oxygen, my dear children? Because in all the cells of our body, the glucose is finally getting broken down to CO2, H2O and lots of ATP, and this ATP is something that helps us maintain life, right? This is providing energy. And for this, for production of this much amount of ATP, for production of CO2, for production of H2O, you need the presence of oxygen. You call this oxidation of glucose, and this is known as aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration. Now what happens is that when you are running so fast, okay, the amount of oxygen there in your body becomes less. So you cannot rely on oxygen. You cannot rely on oxygen for the production of ATP. So our body shifts from this state to anaerobic respiration. That means respiration in the absence of oxygen. And what is different over here? The big picture I'll tell you. So basically the glucose will be converting to pyruvate. Now this is something that is common for this and this. Okay, even though I made one arrow, here also glucose is converting to pyruvate first, and this happens in the cytoplasm. And now usually over here this pyruvate will get into another organelle which is known as mitochondria, where all this thing is happening. H2O, CO2 and ATP is being produced in the mitochondria in the presence of oxygen. From there the role of oxygen comes in. Okay, but over here in anaerobic respiration, the glucose to pyruvate conversion happens in cytoplasm just like this, but again the pyruvate is again going to convert into something that is known as lactic acid, my dear children. It says, I do not have oxygen. I do not have oxygen, I cannot get inside the mitochondria to do the process of aerobic respiration. Please make some energy fast, make it really quick. So it says that okay, I'll just convert directly into lactic acid, and while I do so, I can make a little amount of ATP also, and with this you can survive. Okay, so the glucose converts to pyruvate as usual, and the pyruvate converts to lactic acid, my dear children, and also produces ATP, and this ATP helps us in running. But the problem is that there is a catch in the story, and all this happens in the cytoplasm itself. There is no entry into mitochondria and things like that. There is no presence of oxygen over here, my dear children. So the problem is when the lactic acid, it accumulates way too much. Okay, the lactic acid accumulates way too much. That's when we get the muscle cramps. Cool? So sometimes while running, athletes suffer from muscle cramps. Why? This is the reason. Because our body is shifting from aerobic respiration to anaerobic respiration as there is lack of oxygen. Hence the pyruvate will be converting into lactic acid and energy, and this lactic acid accumulation would be causing the muscle cramps. Now how is respiration in this case different from aerobic respiration? As I told you, it's anaerobic respiration. You have to show this and explain. Cool. Now, write the other name given to lymph, state its true function. What do you mean by lymph? So, basically what happens, you know the arteries which are there. Arteries carries oxygenated blood usually. Okay, or it carries the blood away from the heart. So, mostly arteries are carrying oxygenated blood, and basically this oxygenated blood has to go to all the cells because this process has to happen, right? Now, what happens? Our arteries are big, they cannot get in between the tissues or in between the cells. So, the arteries will be branching down into arterioles. The arterioles will be coming together to form capillaries. Okay, capillaries. Now, what happens is that these capillaries are just one cell thick. So, there will be gaps over here as well. There will be small chutu gaps also. So, what happens is that the blood is coming with high pressure. Okay, the blood comes with high pressure, so certain cells stay over here, but certain other cells, for example your WBC, which can change its shape, it moves outside, and also plasma, in which all the cells are floating. The little amount of plasma also moves out, some ions moves out, and basically certain pathogens also move out. In between what? What is this? This is in between the cells, my dear children. Now, in between the cells, the space which is there, what do you call this? You call this as interstitial space. Okay, now the fluid which is accumulating there, I call it lymph fluid. What do I call it? Lymph fluid. I can also call it one more thing, that is tissue fluid, which is there between the tissues, between the cells. So, it can be known as tissue fluid, it can be known as interstitial fluid, whatever you want to say, you can say. So, other name is interstitial fluid or tissue fluid. Now, state its true function. What is the use of lymph? So, what happens is that all this thing which is getting accumulated, lymph, okay, it does not just stay there. If it stay there, our organs and basically wherever it is there, that portion will be swollen up, and no one wants that, right? That portion cannot be swollen up. So, there is another lymphatic, okay, there will be other vessels which are known as lymphatic vessels, okay, which are known as lymphatic vessels, which will be what? Carrying all this lymph, which will be carrying all this fluid over there. And what does it do? Basically, this lymphatic vessels, no, they have certain areas like this, which is known as lymph nodes, which are highly supplied with WBCs, white blood cells. Okay, here also they are carrying WBCs, but apart from that, there are certain swollen areas which you call as lymph nodes, which have high amount of WBCs. And what do? The lymph fluid which passes through, if it has pathogens, it will catch those pathogens and kill them. Okay, and then this particular fluid which has just leaked out from the capillaries, it will be directly giving back to the vein only, and from the vein it will be going to the heart. So, the thing goes on like this. So, basically it is acting like a drainage unit. You are draining the things and getting it back. Now, apart from this, there is one more use of lymphatic fluid, and that is the vessels which are there, the lymphatic vessels which are there, it can help in the uptake of things which normal capillaries cannot. For example, fat. While digestion happens, when the food is broken down, you know, fats are also being produced. Now, for absorbing fat, the capillaries are not enough because they have small pores. Fats cannot get inside. So, what do you have? You have lymphatic vessels through which the fat also can be taken up. So, I'll say it's a drainage unit. Apart from that, fat absorption also takes place with the help of lymphatic vessels. Okay. So, let's see. So, muscle cramps occur due to accumulation of lactic acid in the muscles. During vigorous exercise, oxygen supply is insufficient and anaerobic respiration takes place instead of aerobic respiration, just like how I told you. Now, glucose is going to convert into lactic acid plus energy. In aerobic respiration, glucose is fully oxidized to CO2 and H2O. How it is different? This is how it is different. Okay, in anaerobic this is happening. In aerobic, what is happening? The glucose is fully oxidized to CO2, H2O and also energy. Now, lymph is also called tissue fluid or interstitial fluid. Its function include transporting nutrients, oxygen, hormones to cell, that is there, removing waste products and aiding in immune response by carrying lymphocytes. Apart from that, you can say basically lymph carries fats also. Okay, so nutrients, transporting nutrients other than transporting fats and also some other things, oxygen and hormones to the cell. So, instead of this, you can just say it helps in absorption of fat, lymph. Basically, lymphatic vessels does it, but anyways, lymph has what? Or you can say instead of absorption of fat, transportation of fat. Transportation of fat, and fat is also necessary for our body. Fat insulates our body. Fat have a lot of function. Fat is, when our body is not having enough amount of glucose, it will rely on fat for energy. So we definitely need a little amount of fat as well. There's good fat, bad fat. So it is basically lymphatic vessels, they help in absorbing, and lymph is one that carries the fat and everything. So you can talk about that also. Okay? Chalo. Now, some unicellular organisms such as Plasmodium and Leishmania differ in the manner in which they reproduce. Name and explain the reproductive process taking place in them. So we have two organisms given over here. One is what? One is Plasmodium and the other one is Leishmania. Okay, so Plasmodium is the one that causes malaria, my dear children. If you know, you know. So what happens is that basically the nucleus of the Plasmodium, it keeps on dividing. Okay, and slowly this is covered by a cyst. Okay, so where the nucleus is completely dividing multiple times, you call this as multiple fission. And slowly what happens, little amount of cytoplasm, after the nuclear division is finished, little amount of cytoplasm is going to cover up all the nuclear material right over here. And later this cyst will be breaking down and all these guys will be moving out. So you see, from one single organism you are getting multiple organisms. Why? Because of multiple fission that is happening. So your nuclear division is there and after that the cytoplasm divides and gets covered to each of them and then they come out. Okay, when the cyst is broken down. This happens in the case of Plasmodium. Okay, this is a mode of asexual reproduction where there is no fusion of gametes and things like that. They are naturally dividing. So that is asexual reproduction, but this is known as multiple fission. Whereas when you talk about Leishmania, it looks something like this. It has cilia like this. So what happens is that basically here the cilia, there will be duplication of cilia and then later this guy will be longitudinally dividing into what? To Leishmania. So it will divide longitudinally, my dear children, like this. Okay, like this into two Leishmania. This is known as longitudinal fission. But over here, if you see, one organism is dividing into two. So I will call this fission as binary fission. Okay, what will I call it? I will call it binary fission. Cool. So some unicellular organisms such as Plasmodium and Leishmania differ in the way in which they reproduce because Plasmodium does multiple fission whereas Leishmania does binary fission, and since they are doing in a longitudinal axis, I will call this as longitudinal binary fission. Okay, it is known as longitudinal binary fission. That okay. So Plasmodium reproduces by multiple fission where the nucleus divides repeatedly and the cytoplasm splits to form many daughter cells. Now Leishmania reproduces by binary fission where the organism splits into two identical daughter cells. Due to its elongated body, binary fission occurs longitudinally. Cool. Section C, 3-marker question. Okay. Now, taking the example of any two animal hormones along with their gland of secretion, explain how these hormones help in growth and development. Growth and development. For growth and development, my dear children, there is only one hormone that we have and that is known as growth hormone. We heard about it. And growth hormone is being released by a gland which is known as pituitary gland. What does it do? It helps in growth of bones, it helps in cell division and things like that. Basically, it is just wanting the body of an organism to increase in size and structure. Okay. Now over here, if the amount of growth hormone is less, there is a condition which is caused and that is known as dwarfism. You might have seen dwarf people, it's because they lack the growth hormone. They are deficient in growth hormone. Now, if it's way too much, this will again cause something that is known as gigantism. When it is produced way too much. Okay. Now, the next hormone, regulating metabolism in the body. For regulating metabolism in the body, there is a very famous hormone that is known as thyroid hormone. Now, thyroid hormone is being produced by thyroid gland And what all does it do? It regulates the metabolism. Metabolism means breakdown, making of fat, glucose, protein, whatever thing is there, whatever organic compound we have in our body, for making of that, for breaking down things like that, the regulation of everything is being controlled by the thyroid hormone, or that is thyroxine or triiodothyronin. So you have thyroxine or triiodothyronin. Either way, they are released by thyroid gland, my dear children, and they are going to regulate it. Okay, now if you are deficient in the hormone, you call it hypothyroidism. If you have more, you call it hyperthyroidism. Cool. How do you frame the answer? You can frame the answer like this. So, growth and development, growth hormone secreted by pituitary gland, my dear children, promotes cell division, bone growth and muscle development. Deficiency causes dwarfism and excess causes gigantism. Now, regulating metabolism, who is the one? Thyroxine. Thyroxine, as I said, is a thyroid hormone. There are two thyroid hormones. One is, actually there are three, but okay. Thyroxine is there, which have 4 iodine molecules, atoms, and you have triiodothyronin. What is it? 3. Iodo, that means iodine is there. Thyronin. Triiodothyronin, okay, T3 we call it, and this is T4. So, these two hormones are being released by the thyroid gland. It regulates the proper metabolism of carbohydrate, proteins and fat, that is breakdown and making up of carbohydrate, protein and fat. Now, deficiency would cause hypothyroidism, while excess would be causing hyperthyroidism. Cool. Always remember, thyroxine hormones need the presence of iodine, which is why we are said to have iodized salt. So, if you have solved the sample paper questions with me, you know how many times these questions have been repeated. So, please practice this accordingly. Okay. And I hope you are understanding what I am trying to say, my dear children. If you are understanding, please let me know in the comment section below. Okay. And if you are facing difficulty, then also you have to tell me. Cool. Next question. Shall we do it? Okay. Question number 30. Mendel crossed pure tall pea plants with pure short pea plants. Okay. He crossed pure tall pea plants, that is capital T capital. Pure you call when there is homozygous condition. Okay. When both the alleles are same. And pure dwarf. These are the parents. So you have to write parents. Now, and he got the F1 progeny. When the plants of F1 progeny were self-pollinated, plants of F2 progeny were obtained. Okay, so I'll tell the scenario. Now question, let's see the question. What did the plants of F1 progeny look like? Give that gene combination. So we have to take out the F1 progeny. For doing that, we have to take out the gametes. So the gamete can either have capital T, again here also it can have capital T, here it can have small t, here also it can have small t. This is what? The gametes. Now this can fuse with this, what do you get? Capital T small t. This can fuse with this, again capital T small t. This can fuse with this, capital T small t, and this can fuse with this, capital T small t. Okay. Over here, if you see all of them, they are tall and capital T is dominant over them everywhere. So what did the plants of F1 progeny look like? All of them, my dear, are tall because they have a dominant allele over here. Give the gene combination. This is the gene combination. They are all capital T, small t. Now, why could the gene for shortness not be expressed in the plants of F1 progeny? Why do you think this TG, small t gene, is not expressed? Because there is a dominant allele over here. What do you have, children, my dear? My dear children, you have what? One dominant allele, which is doing what? It is masking the effect of the recessive allele, the one that is not expressing itself. What do you call it? You will call this as recessive. It is masking the effect of recessive allele, which is why it is not being expressed. Now write the ratio of plants obtained in F2 progeny and state the conclusion drawn from this experiment. So we have to say what is the ratio of plants obtained in F2 progeny. How do you find F2 progeny? Basically, if you do selfing, if you cross this with this, you get F2 progeny. Let's do that. So capital T small t is there, capital T small t is there. This is what the parents. Now gametes. Please write parents like this and write that. Okay. Now gametes, you have to encircle them. It can be capital T or it can be small t. That means this chromosome can be in a gamete, this chromosome can be in a gamete. From a pair of chromosome, only one will be going. Half of the chromosome will be going in a gamete, right? So either this or this can go. Similarly, either this or this can go, small t or capital T. Now, if you want to make the F2 generation, you cross this with this, you get capital T, capital T. You cross this with this, you get capital T, small t. You cross this with this, again capital T, small t. You cross this with this, small t, small t. So capital T is there, that means it will be tall. Capital T small t, again it will be tall. Capital T small t, again it will be tall. Small t, it will be dwarf. Cool? Works? So write the ratio of the plants obtained in F2 generation. So you see tall, tall, tall and dwarf. So how many of them are tall? 3:1. That is 3 of them are tall. Please write like this. And one of them is what? Dwarf. This is how they appear physically. This is what? The phenotypic ratio. That is the physical appearance ratio, phenotypic ratio. If you are talking about genotypic, genetically how they are. Genotypic ratio, this is capital T, capital T, small t. Okay, this is one that has capital T, so I'll say 1, capital T. Two of them that has capital T, small t, so I'll write 2, capital T, small t. And then again one which has small t. Again one which has small t. Got it? So write the ratio of the plants obtained in F2 progeny and state the conclusion drawn from this experiment. This is the ratio. Okay, works? Okay, chalo, let's go. Conclusions are traits are controlled by alleles and dominant alleles mask the expression of recessive alleles in a heterozygous condition. So in a heterozygous condition, when it is like this is homozygous, I told you, when both the alleles are same. In this condition, what is happening? The recessive alleles effect is being masked. It is not showing its effect. Okay, whereas over here it is showing its, in the homozygous condition it will be showing its effect. Cool? Chalo. Section D, which is 5-marker question. Chalo. Differentiate between food chain and food web in a food chain consisting of deer, grass and tiger. Okay, let's solve the first part of the question first. Differentiate between food chain and a food web. Anyway, that is the question, we have to solve it. So food chain is what? Basically, there is grass. Grass is eaten by grasshopper. Grasshopper is eaten by frog. Frog is eaten by snake. And that's all. Now, grass can be eaten by rabbit. Rabbit can directly be eaten by snake and things like that. That is what a food web, where everything is interconnected. This is a food chain and this is a food web where everything is interconnected. This grasshopper can be eaten up by something else and that something else can be eaten up by something else also. So basically, can I say the food chain is always straight and it is linear? It is straight and it's linear. But what about the food web? It is branching. It is what? Branching, my dear children. Okay. Food chain, it is always simple, whereas food web, don't you think it is complex? Yes, it is complex. Now, food chain, basically, it does not ensure that, for example, one organism is not there in the food chain. Do you think other organism can survive on it? No. But if you're talking about food web, it is more stable. Why? Because suppose the grasshopper, if the frog is not getting the grasshopper, it will be feeding on something else. Right, because that is there in the food web, so that will be more stable. So these are certain points that you can write. I'll directly show you how you can frame your answer. You can frame your answer like this. Okay, so definition, right? Food chain is a linear sequence showing who eats whom. Food web is a network of interconnected food chains. Complexity, it is say simple and it is direct. Food web, it is complex with multiple feeding relationships are there, obviously. Food chain is less stable, hence disruption affects the chain. If there is one problem, it will affect the whole chain. More stable due to interconnected links. So they have multiple options right there. Now, single pathway of energy transfer, the energy will be moving from one organism to another organism to another organism. So there is only single way. But as you know, food web is having interconnected links. So obviously there can be multiple pathway of energy transfer, but anyway it will be in one direction, that is unidirectional only, but there can be multiple pathways. Okay. Now, example, you can give grass by grasshopper, frog, snake and hawk. Now, grass eaten by both grasshopper and rabbit, hawks eat frogs and snakes both. So everything is kind of linked and they have multiple things as well. Okay. Now, there's the next part of the question, that is, in a food chain consisting of deer, grass and tiger. Okay, what do we have? We have deer, grass and tiger. Why did I arrange like this? Because obviously grass is not going to eat the deer, deer is going to eat the grass. So you have to write it like this only. Now, if the population of deer decreases, suppose this guy decreases, what will happen to the population of organism belonging to the first and the third trophic level? So this is the first trophic level, this is the second trophic level and this is the third trophic level. So if deer is affected, my dear children, what will be its effect on this and this level? Now, if deer is less, grass will grow more because there is no one to eat it. So the population of grass will increase What about tiger? Tiger which was eating the deer, if it's a food chain you're talking about. I'm not talking about food web, right? So tiger is there and tiger is eating deer and deer population goes less. Obviously, tiger population will also go less. Okay, if it was a food web, it can depend on something else. But over here, they have mentioned like this. So this is a food chain. So grass population, trophic level 1 population increases. Tiger population, trophic level 3 population, it decreases. Okay, how do you frame your answer? Let's see. So, effect of deer decrease. Grass first trophic level increases due to reduced grazing. Okay, there is no organism to eat up this, so this is why there is a reduced grazing. Okay, what about tigers? Third trophic level decreases due to reduced food availability. So there will be less food available, which is why that also decreases. That is, deers are less, so tigers are really, really hungry. Cool? Chalo. Section E. This contains 4 marker questions, my dear children. Okay, so let's see what we can put over here. So design an experiment to demonstrate that carbon dioxide is essential for photosynthesis. Write the observation and conclusion for the experiment. How can I show that carbon dioxide is important for the process of photosynthesis? I can do one thing. I can take a plant and I can put it in a dark room such that whatever amount of starch is there, starch is carbohydrate, right? Whatever amount of starch is there, it is de-starched. Okay, it is used up. So basically, when I am putting it in dark, what is happening at the end? I am getting de-starched plant. De-starched. I can put a line over here. De-starched plant. Now, what I am going to do with this de-starched plant? I have 2 plants like this. Okay, there are 2 plants like this. So I am going to take plant 1. And I am going to take plant 2, I am going to put it inside a glass jar, this also inside a glass jar. This is bell jar 1, this is bell jar 2. Now, I am going to close this setup and this is a glass jar. So, obviously sun can peek through and give its rays to this and this guy, that is fine. But in glass jar 1, I am doing one thing. I am putting a bowl. And then this bowl, I am putting little amount of KOH, that is potassium hydroxide. Now you might think, ma'am, why? Basically, what happens? Sun is there. For photosynthesis to happen, what do you need? You need sunlight, you need water, and water also I am provided. Okay, don't worry about that. Water also I have provided to both. So water is there, sunlight is there, carbon dioxide is also needed. So, with the pertaining amount of oxygen, everything which was there, the plant was always obviously respiring. The plant was previously respiring, it is still respiring, right? So, when respiration happens, you might be knowing that the food which is there, okay, in respiration, at the end of respiration, what do you get? You get CO2 plus H2 plus ATP, that is what you get. So, this CO2 which is there as an end product of respiration, my dear children, it will be giving me CO2, okay, and this CO2 can be utilized by the plant because anyways it just needed CO2, H2 was there and the sunlight is also there. This plant will photosynthesize. What about this plant? The CO2 which this plant is releasing in the form by the process of respiration, this CO2 is being absorbed by KOH, that is potassium hydroxide. This CO2 has been absorbed by potassium hydroxide. Now, do you think in this glass jar you would be having CO2? Now, if CO2 is not there, do you think photosynthesis will be happening? No, my dear children. So, that's a big problem. Okay, you get it? Now, to confirm it, what do? I take this leaf. I take this leaf and this leaf also. So, this is leaf 1 and this is leaf 2. I put some iodine solution on it. What do I put? Iodine solution on it. And you know the good thing about iodine? Iodine solution will turn blue-black in color, when there is the presence of starch. Now, starch is carbohydrate which is produced as an end product of photosynthesis. Okay, so glucose is produced as an end product of photosynthesis. This glucose accumulates together to form starch. So, if photosynthesis has happened, what happens when I put iodine? It will turn blue-black in color because there will be starch. Okay, but when I took leaf from this and I am putting iodine, it is not turning blue and black. Why? Because it did not do photosynthesis. Why? Because CO2 was not available, CO2 was absorbed by KOH, and here when I put iodine, starch was being made. So that means CO2 is really important. The only missing factor from here to here was CO2, because CO2 has been absorbed by potassium hydroxide, my dear children. So with this experiment, can I say that not potassium hydroxide, that carbon dioxide is really important for the process of photosynthesis? I can say. So this is the experiment that you have to show. So make drawing and show. Apart from that, you have to write a bit. Write like this. Experiment: place a de-starch potted plant in sunlight. Okay. Cover one leaf with a bell jar 1 containing potassium hydroxide to absorb CO2. Test the leaves for starch using iodine solution. Now place another de-starch potted plant in sunlight and cover it with bell jar 2. Test the leaves for starch using iodine solution. So over here I have not put the potassium hydroxide in bell jar 2. Now observation is that you have to write like this: experiment, observation, conclusion. Observation is that leaf inside jar 1 does not turn blue black, indicating no starch formation. The other leaf does. Okay, conclusion: CO2 is essential for photosynthesis, as when CO2 was absorbed by potassium hydroxide, it was not giving a positive starch test, or basically iodine test. Cool? Easy. Show blue black, say that iodine will turn the leaf blue black in color only if starch is present. Mention that. Cool? Now there's an OR part to this question, that is, in the experimental setup shown above in the diagram 1, the atmospheric air is being passed into the lime water with a syringe. Okay. While in diagram 2, air is being exhaled into the lime water. The time taken for the lime water to turn milky in both the test tubes is different. Give the reason. So in atmospheric air, which I am taking and I am putting in the lime water, my dear children, and over here when I am blowing out into directly in the lime water, both of them will turn milky, but here it will be faster. But here it will be faster, I am telling you. Why so? Because when we breathe out, we are breathing out a lot of carbon dioxide. So we have a high amount of carbon dioxide, more than what is present in the environment over there. You get it? Because we are breathing out, okay, that has high amount of CO2, which is why. The lime water is what basically CaOH twice. Calcium hydroxide. Now when calcium hydroxide combines with CO2, it gives out CaCO3, that is calcium carbonate, and this calcium carbonate is something that precipitates down as a, giving it a milky color. So basically if you have more amount of CO2, it will obviously give more amount of CaCO3, and hence it will turn more milky. Cool. Now draw the diagram of an open stomatal pore and label guard cells and chloroplast on it. Mention 2 functions performed by the stomata. Easy question. You have to mention what you have to show: an open stomatal pore, and what do you have to mention? Guard cells, and you have to mention chloroplast. Chalo. So first thing, let's see this question. Okay, the lime water turns milky due to reaction of carbon dioxide with calcium hydroxide, that is lime water. CaOH twice, CO2 gives CaCO3 plus H2O. This CaCO3 is getting precipitated. Exhaled air contains a higher concentration of CO2, that is almost 4%, compared to the atmospheric, that is having 0.03%. So lime water in the diagram turns milky faster. Diagram 2, milky faster. Okay. Now stomata. The diagram you can draw like this. So it is an open stomata, right? So you should be having, okay, wait, I'll draw it in a different slide. The easiest way you can draw is make the opening first and then show the guard cells. This is the guard cells, my dear children, and above it you would be having some subsidiary cells as well. Okay, the guard cell will have its own nucleus, will be having a big vacuole as well, and you are asked to make chloroplast. So you have to show chloroplast. So you can make multiple chloroplasts in there. You don't have to just make one. You can have multiple chloroplasts. So this thing that you see, first thing you mention is what? This is the open stomatal pore. This is the guard cell that you are having, and these are the chloroplast. Okay, these three are the important things that is being asked, so you can just mention those things apart from mentioning the whole thing away. Okay, so this is subsidiary cells, you don't have to mention all those things. Now, what are the two functions of stomata? Stomata opens and closes for gaseous exchange. Okay, for example, the plant is needing carbon dioxide, for that it has to open and take in carbon dioxide. The plant has to give out oxygen, it will give out oxygen if it opens. Okay, apart from that, apart from the exchange of gases, there is what? To help in the maintenance of temperature also, or basically loss of water. Okay, so you know transpiration is happening in the plant where the water molecules are lost in the form of water vapor. So these water molecules, if they are not going out, there won't be a pull being created over there, and this pull won't allow this. If this pull is not there, obviously water will not be transported upwards as well. So you have to make sure that the stomatal pores are open and the water is moving out. So for transportation or movement of water also, you need what? You need stomatal pores. So two functions are there, and please make the diagram like this and explain it well. Cool? Now, okay. So exchange of gases allows CO2 entry for photosynthesis, oxygen release. Transpiration facilitates water vapor loss, aiding in cooling and nutrient transport. As I said, for water transport also, and along with water, nutrients will also be transported, and also for cooling effect. When water is lost in the form of water vapor, my dear children, it's given cooling effect as well to the plant. Okay, diagram. The diagram should depict an open stomata with labeled guard cells and chloroplast. At least that should be there in the diagram. Always remember, they have a bigger vacuole for storing ions and stuff like that. Okay. So with this, we are completing all the questions, okay, of this particular question paper, and I hope you understood each and everything. If you have not understood anything that I have mentioned over here specifically, you can just put it down in the comment section. I am pretty sure I will be commenting down. Okay, I'll be giving your answer. So please do that. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also tell it to your friends that you can watch this video or the other videos which are there in our channel, whether it be of chemistry or physics, whatever you need help, okay, which subject you're lacking in, just go through, focus that subject and study really well. Okay, so wishing you all the best, my dear children, and also do let me know if you need some help, as I told you. Okay, so not be panicked, everything is going to be all right. Bye bye, take care.